Right now, we'll go back to the thrusting. We will start with a simple thrusting exercise that we did, which was thrusting from extremely close distance. So first I go like super close. My partner just opens themselves. Really small opening. That. Okay. Always do sound for me. Always do a sound imitation. Yep. Nope. Okay, so try to shorten the time between your thrust and the opening. Sometimes, I mean, this is after imagination. You can do also different vocal commands. Sometimes it's also good to do vocal confirmation from your side when you're doing the thrust, like the coach does. Okay, so try to be like instead of right. Then after 10 repetitions, we move a bit away, and we go into and then after 10 repetitions again, we move further and we make advanced lunge. Okay, that's forward. Don't forget, I'm stressing this all the time. In order to make a bubble thrust, in order to hit, you need to have a good structure or good position of your body. So don't go like butter, okay, on the back, but instead just really push the opponent with the power of your body. Okay, the thrust will be powerful when your hands are in unison with your body, when your shoulders are low, and when I'm just going there. Do not necessarily go up or down if you don't have to. Okay, the longest distance you can cover will be always in the longest position in front of your body. Right? Let's do it. When you're ready, just wait. I will see the rest, and then I will switch. Let's say medieval differentiator to some part. Now, the only deciding factor, like yesterday we went through all this stuff, I will just repeat it. When my opponent gives me an opening, or even doesn't give me, it is somewhere here. Okay, so the opening is small. I should most of the time just go forward. Okay, there's absolutely zero reasons to go and push him somewhere and do stuff, because every time you do something, your opponent will react. The more of information I will be giving to him, the more he will use it for his advantage. Okay, you're not going to gain anything from, if the opening is there, you will not gain anything from going like this, because exactly my opponent will use it, because I'm opening myself actually. Okay, so I don't know, 80% of the cases, maybe 90% of the cases, if you don't have to, you're just doing a direct thrust. Okay, the only exception when we are doing the thrust into the four hangers. Okay, and four hangers can mean like flug looks like this. All of that was flug. Okay, ox. All that is ox. Okay, so whichever you can. The only exception is if there is a larger opening and I am potentially endangered by the opening. Okay, so it means some people, for instance, when they fence, they do like this because they have quick snaps. Okay, this happens. I know there are some Czech guys who do really have like this big strategy of firing the blade. And if you've got someone like that, if Matthew was just going and if I just go there, they would probably get rid of her blade or catch you somewhere, which is dangerous. In that regard, this is exactly the situation when we have to go and defend into one of the hanging positions. But if you remember, not before thrusting. So I'm not going like thrusting like this, because again, shortening myself, I'm losing time, I'm endangering myself. But after doing the initial thrust, so here, boom, going, okay, in one continuous movement. Okay, it's not long, it's like one very fast movement. When even the opponent is doing, I just lounge and go in order to cover myself. Okay, or alternatively, there are some guys who tend to do this. Okay, and one of the things how to get rid of it is one thrust, when it's about to connect, going down to parry, to block for just a little moment. Okay, now we will do this. So now the coach will give two different openings. Yeah, let's do just okay, let's do just the left side, because we do the left side most of the times anyways. So the coach either gives me a high opening or a lower one. Okay, it doesn't have to be here. Usually it's just somewhere here. So If it's a lower one, I go and I end up, I connect and end up in one continuous movement in hanging. Okay? If it's a higher opening, I start thrusting and I end up in hanging. Okay? If it's for any reason like very, very low, like this, I may not necessarily have to go there. Okay? Okay? This is very rare. It's one of the approach against this position. There are of course different approaches and we'll explore some in the afternoon. But for now just this. Okay? All clear? All clear? Just the left side. Okay? Let's go. 1, 2, and 3 distances. Okay? So be complementary to the stuff that we already did. Those topics will be fighting with Strake, which will be like a small topic, and the larger will be falling over the opponent's sword, or one of the ways how to approach the opponent with blocking certain openings. Okay, there is a very nice set of how to approach this kind of pre-fencing for Zufechten. So we'll go through all of it, and then in the end we'll again leave some time for free sparring or for experimentation. All right? Before we learn the defense against something, we will play a little bit with the initial offense. Okay? As you know, there are multiple ways how we may attack someone. Okay? Of course, we may attack someone with a cut, with a thrust. We may provoke someone into an attack, parry, then respond somehow, etc., etc. And do you think that there is a thing which we may call a safe attack? Does a safe attack exist? Yeah.
No.
Does a safe attack exist? No.
Maybe at the distance limit or not?
There is a safe attack. He has a sword, you have a pistol, and you're far, far away. And maybe not well, but nevertheless, like any attack we do is never safe. Every guy who is attacking always takes a risk, and often it's a bigger risk than the person who is not attacking. Okay, because the person who is not attacking has some time to figure out proper defense. I mean, some time. Of course, we as attackers or the guys who are attacking are trying to find the best possible means. So, we have already somehow concluded that thrusts are the best way to entry, because if I put my sword in front of my body, it's guarding me. So whatever happens, I mean, I can use the sword as a resort, and it's still safer to have it here than to have it here if there's a sword going. Okay? It will still take me a lot of time to copy first, etc. But if we say a thrust, or if we assume that thrust is nothing else, just a position, or one of the positions called langord, we can assume that langord is also a series of positions. Okay, so when we say langord in certain, let's say, German realia, langord is not just this, but also this position is langord. It's the longest position. Yeah, now, bear with me. Is this langord?
Hanging over the head.
It is langord. Is this langord?
Yes.
I mean, basically, the thing is, like, there are some technical differences, but all the time, when I have this position, it may more or less serves the same purpose. Okay? If someone is approaching you, and if there's a sword in front of their body, having sword here does more or less the same. It changes the conditions a little, of course, because it's there. Or having it there also is more or less the same, because it's still keeping your opponent at bay. It just changes certain conditions. Okay, so that's why in certain fencing books you can find terms like calling this fontak. Okay, this is the kluni. Okay, the thing that you have not far away from here. There is a position which they call fontak, and it's this. Okay. If you were, some of you mentioned that you like Sigmund Ringek, for instance, there is this fencing book which is called, which is by the guy Hans Medel, or Schinig, or whatever, complicated, and the guy, Hans Medel guy, he mentions a thing called Alberfontak. Okay, there is a thing which is Alberfontak, and it's nothing else but just this. Okay, so they usually call moving through certain positions with the names of those positions. Okay. Or other example be, Cluny also has a high position like this. You know how they call it? Scheitler. Scheitler. Because, I mean, the purpose of it, okay? So cutting a Scheitler. So, but it's still, of course, a fontak. For me, it's still a fontak. So, in my approach to reduce everything, to let's say some logical means, in order for us to be easier to analyze and enter a fight, I'm trying to find like common denominators for different things, so I can always do something against it. Okay, so I decided to limit, to functionally, or to make a larger group of positions to which I react the same, because in the end, people using these positions do the same or have the same possibilities from them. All right. So that's why for me, this, everything is one position which serves the same purpose but has slightly different tactical applications. Okay. But in the end, same way I would attack against someone here, I can attack when they are here. I just have to make a few precautions. All right. So let's say that this is the theoretical basis, and now for me, when this movement, which we call a Streich or an upsweep, okay, encompasses every of those positions. So I'm going through all the Langort positions, and I'm keeping my opponent completely at bay, because here it's all the same. All right. So either going like this or going like this against my opponent is more or less the same, because I can do the same thing from there. All right, with a few exemptions. Now we will try to make just a very brief exercise, if you can. We will try to make an exercise where we will be making this kind of movement. Okay, so strike and back, strike and back, and our opponent can attack us at any point. Well, any point meaning, of course, they wouldn't go into a double hit. They would rather try to attack, to nachreis us when we are here or here. Okay. Now, for me as a fencer, using this movement, we have to understand that we are keeping our opponent away from us, because he cannot come closer. If he comes, he will be hit. Okay, so he has to be careful. And if he decides to attack either one below, I just do the movement again. Or if he decides to attack like here, I can again parry from above. So this is, for me, this kind of movement is absolutely complete, because at any point I'm covered. At any point I can do parry either from below or from above. And the options to attack me are relatively limited. Okay? So now, again one more time, I will be just doing stationary movement. Okay, my partner can try to attack me, boom, and I continue doing this movement, boom, very boom, and until the end of time. Okay? So just very briefly do this, and then we will continue. All right? And for my pairs, please.
Don't try to attack. You attack like whatever you want. So
wherever you feel it's better for you.
like also trust and
Just the cast.
Cut to the head. Okay.
I mean, trust will work as well, but, and the thing is, with this thing, it's both offensive and defensive. Okay, the defensive measure is keeping my opponent at bay, because I'm still keeping here, and I make it difficult for him, for instance, to do a timely thrust, because it's difficult to get a bind on my sword. Right? So it's very hard. If he wanted to do absetzen or something, it's very difficult, because I'm not giving him a lot of options to do it. Okay? So when I'm moving the sword like this, I'm making it hard, and do not move it in a, let's say, in a regular manner. Okay? Try to go a bit chaotically. So do not move like because then you create a pattern, and everyone who can do 1 + 1 will analyze that pattern and will attack into Okay? So in this case, when I move, I'm trying to do it boom, boom, boom. So when they attack, I can respond, or I can attack myself. All right. So the defensive measure is keeping at bay, and if I get attacked, boom, I can respond with a parry like this, or if I'm above this attack, I can respond with a different thing. All right. The offensive measure is that if you feel that the distance is right and your opponent is passive, and you have the opportunity with this, I can move and hitting with the strike below. Or if they do not point at me, if let's say Matu was doing like that, I can use the movement boom to make a cut, okay? Still whilst doing the motion, alright? So try to walk around, try to learn into a trap. If he attacks, boom, respond either with a zonhal or something, alright? Or parry from below. So if he attacks now, parry from below and respond however you want. Or if you feel that your partner is too close, or sometimes he opens himself, boom, attack, or boom, attack, okay? It's still the same movement, so always keeping constant motion, always being defensive, always being wary of what's going on, trying to make irregular motion and responding in a timely and proper manner, right?
The attacker can cut or thrust?
Cut or thrust, you can cut or thrust because more or less it will solve both of them. Alright? Right, so plus minus we have the initial conditions, but what I'm going to show now isn't just limited to strike hand. We will try to generally apply it to more things. But you know, always when we approach someone, we should analyze them. We should analyze a few basic facts, okay? First fact is, of course, the physical part. So, for instance, is my opponent taller or is he shorter? Okay, or are they standing in a taller stance or a lower stance? Okay, this is like the super basic, which will plus minus tell you something about the reach, something about if it's better for you to do attacks from above because it will be easier to hit them, or go from below, or plus minus their strategy. Then we need to assess the temperament. Okay, so for instance, if my opponent is rather defensive type, or if they are rather an offensive type. Okay, because according to this, we need to discuss our tactic. And many people now, many people in tournaments, namely when they're young and new, they want to show themselves. So often, what you see is you start a tournament and people right? This is like, oh my god, right? So much jumping around and stuff. I mean, one good tactic is just to go around and wait until they will calm down, because of course energy is not unlimited. But the thing is that sometimes when people move too much with their sword, it's difficult to find the proper moment when to jump in. Okay, you might be even the best thruster in the world, but simply if someone is just with their point, why the risk to run there with the thrust? Because even if I maybe hit them, so maybe I hit them, I get hit, accidental hit everywhere. Okay, so in that case, I have to choose a different tactic. Again, the number of tactics you can find your own, but let's say generally you might go into sniping, you might go into hands and try to go for different targets. I mean, whatever works for you. But there is one strategy of how to approach our opponents maybe in a quite a safe manner if you're not sure about what kind of temperament, how they are going to react. And that kind of techniques are called, or I call them fallen, or falling over. Okay, it is something like blocking, or imagine, let's say rapiers. It's more apparent than rapiers, and the technique consists from putting your sword over opponents and covering your entry. Okay, so it's not exactly a technique where I block and hit at the same time, because I need to find out what my opponent is going to do, so I know what's the correct time for me to enter. Okay. Now we will go back a bit back to our striker, which we did just now. Okay, so you go from you do this. Okay, so not attacking, just do this. Okay, so I've got someone who is doing this. Okay, and this is a bit problematic. Of course, I can wait for proper moment to naturalize them when their sword is there or there. But again, we already know that if someone knows what to do, they will be covered more or less in every point. So it's not a 100% win. So in this case, we may choose in the proper moment when our opponent is down to cover their sword. Okay, so we stop them for a moment, and then we can safely come closer and hit them with whatever, I mean, thrust or whatever. Okay. The main point is we're using our human lizard stupidity against them. Okay. So what happens? This movement costs us some energy. Okay. And if there is strength to our movement, the problem is every time we hit something, usually most people, if they are not ready for it, they react by, I want to go for this all the time. I think, okay, even if I'm like this, I hit someone, because I wanna go. This is like my way, okay? And this is exactly the moment we need. This is exactly the one tiny moment we need, because for a moment they hit our sword, okay? They hit our sword, and for a moment they lose some power, and they have to restart and go into a new movement. And this gives us a tempo. Okay? This gives us a tempo we may use in order to go into our entry, to go closer. Okay? What's gonna happen? So opponent is doing the punch. Here we put our sword, and now if nothing happens, I immediately continue into a thrust or into a cut, or I block my opponent. He must end this movement and go somehow around, maybe other side, like this. He must go somewhere around, which again leaves time for me to decide the best course of action. Okay? So now, at first, we will try it with this Streichen. So one of you will be doing the Streichen movement, okay? So, or at least movements with the sword. The other person will wait for the proper moment to lay the sword just like this over the opponent's sword. And in this moment, as they hit, we can continue with the thrust or cut, whatever suits you the best, okay? The outcome is up to you. It's just important to block it and to throw it in the correct time. Now, just a few things to remember. When we are blocking like this, it's important to block it in a way that we are pointing with our point somewhere towards the ground. Okay? This is because if my opponent was a little stronger, and if I did it like this, they would probably slide along my blade and it would have no effect. And here, in these positions, or in this position, depending on which side, of course, he does the movement, I'm interlocking my arms or my hands, and I'm getting a lot of mechanical strength without really being necessarily strong. Okay, this is extremely hard for him, and I'm not really holding this strongly. I'm just holding it together. Okay, or on this side, here, I'm just pointing slightly here, not like here, because here it will just slide off because I don't have enough power in this direction. But pointing like this, I will manage to lock it. Okay? So one more time. Opponent is doing this movement. I'm waiting. Do not cut. This is I'm just going in a movement here. Okay? And when I grab it, I may continue in a thrust or something depending on what my opponent does. Okay? If he leaves if for some reason he leaves, I don't have to continue, but again, I can go with the continuation if I wanted. Or if he goes into a cut, okay. So, again, I already know that I can go, which is basically a fluke position. Basically, it's a fluke position from fluke to ox. Okay? Let's try it. Okay, but I found that when it's in combination, it works the best because it shows multiple possible ways, if I can ask you. Now, of course, blocking isn't just about putting your blade over your opponent when they're on the lower side. Okay, so if they're on the lower side and I block him, it's fantastic and easy. But there's also a different blocking, and it's when my opponent is in a higher position. Let's say like this or whatever, they plan to attack me like this. Multiple ways, we will do some of them. And it is, for instance, if my opponent is stationary, I can just run in under the pretense of a high parry, and when I force my opponent to cut or not, he doesn't need to attack me, then I can counter-attack, okay? Naturally, since we're doing the Streichen movement, my partner will do the Streichen movement, and now you can decide in which moment to enter and how to cover yourself. Either I'm going to run here, then attack with this one, or I'm going to wait until he comes up, and then run in whatever you need to do again, okay? This is just one of the ways. I would suggest, when doing this, if you want to be on the safer side, I would suggest to put the sword in front of you, so there's a lot of ground covered by your blade, okay? Or if you are really fast and can enter really close to your opponent, because this is like the crucial part, then it more or less doesn't matter if you can like catch the sword in the beginning of the movement because there's not enough power, okay? From here, what would Lichtenauer do?
Duplir.
Okay, so whatever you feel is necessary. So
Doesn't
we combine the techniques. So we move together. Either I go and jump here, okay, or I wait for the moment where when it's like going up, and now do whatever you feel needs to be done. Okay. Yeah, there was one more thing I wanted to talk about. There's absolutely no need to rush in this, okay? Sometimes, or I would say most of the times, it's beneficial to hold the block for a little longer because you're making it complicated for the opponent, okay? You may ask yourself like, oh, but if I have more time, I have more time to come with something, but actually, the more you block someone's potential actions, the more it fucks up with their brains, okay? This really happens. You will see it now. Okay, you will see it even in this exercise. When we do this and suddenly someone runs and you're like, you have to both retreat or go forward. You're blocked, constantly like can't come up. Okay, this is one of the most difficult things because here we're losing a lot of power due to the nature of the grip of our hand. Okay, or if someone's running in and there's no place where to attack because we know that in the moment we leave the bind, boom, a hit will come. Okay, so it leaves us with not a lot of options. All right, understood? Let's try it. But the difference is that if my opponent, let's say, is endangering me from above or moving or whatever, of course you may just run with a sword like that, but this is a bit risky because if I put my sword like that, there's a relatively large area for me to miss my blade and they can just either go above it or below it or etc. and I'm not even safe. The other thing is if I run just passively, meaning that my point is not pointing towards somewhere here like this, then I'm putting my hands into danger. Okay, a skilled opponent or someone who has a really good grasp of timing and tempo will just avoid some distance as they see me running in and hit my arms or something. Okay, in this case there is the version where I can use this kind of closing in, meaning that I will throw my point down, I will cross my arms like that, and I will cover most of my body into a so-called hanging parry. Okay? So, or if you ever read Leküchner, meaning the master, in Leküchner they call it a krum. Okay? So this is like a krum parry for them as well. So, what we will do now is, our opponent will be just above, okay? We will not do the moving for a few more minutes. So just above, and as we come close, first thing is that you will start moving and you will swing your sword underneath your opponent in order to catch him somewhere on your blade, okay? Not too low, again, not like this, not too high, but in a manner that it covers your body as much as you can in order to catch him in front of you, okay? Boom. And in this moment, there is a multitude of things that you can do, okay? You may either continue to hit here. If you are far away, you may do the thrust. If you want, you can just go around. And I also like, this one is like really painful. It's like, if you're here, you can just do a dance like this because it's a large enough swing and it always leaves like, boom. You can hear the whole inside of the body of the person, all right? So, as I'm standing here, I just boom, throw the sword here, come close, and from here, whatever you feel is right. Okay, if you feel this kind of cut is better, do it. If you can get them for pin them like here, just do it. Okay, if you can go and get them into thrust, do it. Okay, and then after that, I will show you one which is like wonderful, but let's keep that for later. Okay, this one will be okay to look now. Opponent think I'm gonna hit the sword like but instead I'm going inside and I'm using this attack to make a puzzle feint. Okay? So, because there are like many ways of how to disengage, how to make a doppelvexel or cavazione. I can do it like this, I can do it like this, but I can also do it like this. Okay, so basically the last way is what this quasi-cut utilizes. Okay, there are really many ways how to do it. Many ways, because you don't have to necessarily do it against an incoming cut. Sometimes if opponent is just standing in some position, let's say, and you know that most probably, I'm looking at this, most probably he will just do some strike down, so you can just, I sometimes do stuff like coming in, getting in, and then doing stuff, okay? There's, depending, well, the thing that you're going to do as the continuation of this action, as the escalation, should depend on the position of your point, and it sometimes happens that when you enter, your point is quite high. In that case, there is a wonderful thing which Joachim utilizes as a circle. So if you're here, try to do a thing that you will do this kind of cut, and then you will do this kind of escalation. All right. So first thing, I'm going to my opponent. I'm going to lift, then I lift my sword slightly to go and get in here.
Okay.
Boom, and do this, okay? This is a very strong combination. You will see that it will it's like a kamehameha, okay? So it will make up a very great power up. Almost down, like here. So I'm here. From here, I go like this. And then multiple things what you may do, this and this, okay? It's a great way of how to get also into feints and to some feinting, because once you're, sorry, my fault. So once you get here, boom, it's super easy just here to choose where you're gonna end and then to do the finishing, okay? So the technique once more, opponent waits, let's say in a upper guard or some form of upper guard. We will just throw our point underneath. We will slightly raise it, okay, with the technique. So there's place to make the sliding down, and here you can go there, boom, or you can go, I don't know, whatever you want, boom, or even just one, going with a flat like this in a trail out, and then continuing with the last step out. But this is an entry, by the way, it's also from Mayor, maybe also try to take it. As I'm going here, you just slide like this. I mean, try it. Okay?